Hey there, I'm Dr. Angela Loria, the author incubator, and I am joined today by best-selling author Makenna Held. Makenna, thanks for being with me today.
It's great to be here with you.
So Makenna is the author of The Intention Generation. Her book was published about 18 minutes ago, but we've been debating whether, 18 minutes, 18 months, it feels like 18 lifetimes ago.
It does.
But about 18 months ago, and so much has happened that I think so often in life we look around and most people that you bump into after a year and a half and you say, what's up? They're like, same old, same old. And you probably don't have those friends anymore. I don't, but that's what most people say.
It's true.
They're in the same job, they're in the same house, maybe their kids are a year and a half older. And that's, for most people, all that changes. Well, in the last 18 months, Makenna has gone through one of the most dramatic personal revolutions, I think, that I've ever seen. You look different, you sound different, you live somewhere different. Just about anything that could have changed in someone's life changed. Yeah. And honestly, I think in some ways, people are scared of that. I think that's why they don't write their books. That's why they don't launch their business. That's why they don't step out of a box that feels safe, because they're like, what would happen if I blew my life up? So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about what will happen if you blow your life up, in part, and obviously there was a lot going down, but in part by doing a book, because I think what happens when you write a book is you step into who you are in a much louder and bigger way, and you look at it on the page and you say, like, is this who I am? Like, I put this out for the world to see. So there's a lot of identity stuff that comes up when people do their books. And in fact, if you've been thinking about doing a book and putting it off and you think it's because you're busy, let me tell you, that is probably not the reason why you're not doing your book. So before you wrote your book, going back 18, 20, 21 months ago, what was going on in your life? What was going on in your career? What was going on that made you say, I want to do a book?
So I was a business coach at the time where all of my clients were making more money than me. And I was supporting these amazing clients with solid six-figure businesses and mostly not coaches. So I worked with more service providers, not in the coaching realm. And I was just not making as much money as they were. Even though I knew how to get them to make money, I couldn't implement that for myself. And when I started writing my book, I was thinking about quitting coaching in a lot of ways and moving into something else. And writing my book made me want to stay in coaching, but I was kind of on a hiatus. I was a ski instructor.
Oh, that's right. My God, and it was during ski season.
It was during ski season, yeah. So I was a ski instructor at Beaver Creek, and I was coaching here and there, but I think at the time I had 3 or 4 clients, and I was pretty happy, just kind of coasting along in my life. I was doing fine. I made plenty of money to survive, and I didn't work hardly at all. And I coached people into who had amazing businesses. Yeah. And I was pretty bored, honestly. I was pretty bored.
I don't remember you ever saying to me though, like, I want to blow up my entire life.
No, that was not the point. I had no plans on blowing up my entire life. But about 3 weeks after I signed up to start my book is when I blew up my entire life. So that's when I found out about Julia Child's house, the Pitchoune, being on the market. I saw an article in the New York Times, and I saw it on my Facebook group from my the alumni group from my college, Smith College, and everybody was talking about how we should crowdfund and buy the house together, and I'm going, that's a lot of cooks in a kitchen. In a small kitchen.
Right.
So while I'm writing my book, I'm trying to write my book, I then find out about the Pitchoune being on the market, and I'm still ski instructing, and then I realize I can't personally buy it, but then I find a bunch of investors, and we go together and buy the house, and that was in at the end of November.
So these were the things happening when you were writing your book. Yes. You were a ski instructor, which is one job. Yep. You were a coach, which is another job. You were deciding to make a huge financial investment and find investors to go in with. So a major business partnership, which we can call that a third job. And I think just for fun, maybe you got sick in there?
I got really sick. So when I started writing my book, I wrote my book, I think the 13 weeks from December to January and February.
Oh, and the holidays. Let's put the holidays in there.
And the holidays. which is the busy season for ski season. And about halfway through writing my book, which I had barely written any, I was kind of pushing it off because it was scary, terrifying. It was terrifying to write my book, terrifying. And I got really, really sick, like hospitalized pneumonia sick. And so I had about 6 weeks left to write my book. And the entire time I was in bed with a fever and rushing in and out of hospitals because I would wake up at some mornings really having trouble breathing. And so we would rush to the hospital, and then I'd get there and I'd be okay because my inhalers would kick in and we'd go back home and I would lie horizontal and type my book like this.
Nice.
I mean, totally feverish and sick. So, and I'm trying to manage the Peach going viral because in the middle of writing my book in February is when...
Huge media pop.
Which I did nothing of. I had nothing to do with that. A woman from the Smith Alumni Forum had a friend who had just started working at Boston Magazine who was a new writer, and she needed a good story to pitch to her editors to have her first self-created story rather than just editing other people's stories. And she contacted me, and about 48 hours later, we were trending on Facebook. So all of that was happening while I was writing my book, and we're trending on Facebook. I'm still ski instructing. I'm still trying to rebuild my coaching business because that's when I realized I wanted to go back to it, was when I was writing my book. And all of that was happening simultaneously.
And really the goal going into the book was like, hey, let me see how I can reorient my business so I can make more money, maybe be a little less bored, tweak it, give it a little nip tuck.
Yep, that was the original plan.
Yeah, well, that went well. What, the intention generation.
Yeah.
Who is that book for? Why did you write that book? What problem were you trying to solve with it?
I was trying to solve the problem of the way in which intention has been bastardized by the self-help industry, and how it had been shifted from a word that was based on action to a word that was based on just kind of hope and sitting around.
It's my intention.
It's my intention.
To write a book.
My intention is to write a book. And what I found is that most people actually were utilizing the word intention when they actually meant expectation. And expectation literally means to sit around and wait. That's the root word, comes from expectare. And intention comes from the root word intentio, which means to pull towards. So I found this problem in a lot of my clients, and in myself sometimes, and in a number of different summer camps I had gone to, these adult summer camps, where they talked about setting intentions.
Yep. And
they were really setting expectations. Like, I want to go away having made new friends.
Right. Congratulations.
Yay. Yeah. And really what they want, and they would come out at the end and be like, well, I didn't get the thing I wanted. I was like, well, did you do anything to make friends?
I've been to those events too, and I think there's so many great things about them, for sure. Yeah. But then there's so much self-congratulatory bullshit. I'm like, you haven't done anything.
You haven't done anything. And so that's a really interesting thing.
Very nice dreaming and scheming, but we can't sit around and pat ourselves on the back for having an idea.
Yeah.
And if it was as easy as having an idea, then everyone would be there, right? But I think what happens is intention, which is what's so beautiful about this story, is I think when people have this expectation they're going to write a book, it comes with an expectation: I will live in a cabin in Maine. I will be, inspired to write.
I'll have all this free time to just write.
I gotta clear my calendar because I'm gonna write. But actual intention is even if I have a big PR explosion, even if I get sick, even if I have moments of self-doubt. Did you have moments of self-doubt during writing the book? I'm gonna do it anyway. That is the intention is, I will do this, not I will do this if it's easy.
Yeah, I call it the shut up and do it anyway method. And I literally, it's just sometimes you just have to shut up and get it done. And I think that's the thing that I've noticed in terms of my clients, is that often they come in and they have these grand ideas and they have these expectations and hopes. And hope's a 4-letter word. It's not a good word to use. Hope is great in Star Wars land and in fairy tale villages. Hope is great. But hope in the real life doesn't really help you.
Right.
Hope just kind of sits and stews. I hope to write a book. That's really, I hope to start a coaching business. I hope to get clients. I hope. And that's really a lot of times what intention has been turned into in a lot of these books, that you can just hope for it and sit there and meditate and call it in and hope, but people aren't taking the action to actually pull those hopes towards them. So I wrote the book to really, and it's really geared more towards the millennial generation, more the middling, my generation, the middling between the millennials and generation, I guess, X,
Yeah,
Kind
they're
of in
called,
between.
there's a name for you guys. I just saw this on Facebook.
Really?
Exennials.
Exennials. Well, there you go. It's
Who
for
knew?
exennials.
I just
Who
read
knew?
it yesterday. I needed to use my new vocabulary word.
Yeah, so I guess there you go. It's really for exennials. And it's this notion that we were kind of stuck between the techno generation and the 80s cartoon generation. And we've been shown that it's possible to have things, but we were also most impacted by the financial crisis because we were all graduating right as everything blows
Right.
up. And a lot of people are like, well, now what do I do? And it's that whole like, what do I do now philosophy.
Yeah, I think one of my like pet peeves is I do 100% think we need to do what's in alignment. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
But there's somehow that's got turned into let's only do what's easy. Like,
Yes.
oh, I just follow my heart.
I just follow my dreams and I follow my heart, and that's a bunch of bull. Because sometimes you have to do things you don't like. And I always try to work with clients and say, okay, let's try to find the best thing. But for example, you have to market if you're going to have a business.
Right.
So you don't have to do video, you don't have to podcast, but you have to
You got to do something, or you can get a job,
Or you can
which
get a
is
job.
also fine.
Totally fine.
Right.
Totally fine.
And so, yeah, I get really frustrated by this idea that just because we believe in alignment and connection and those things are true, that then everything's supposed to be easy and you're not supposed to get pneumonia, or if you do, you're just supposed to wait to publish your book to someday in the future when
Yeah.
it's not ski season and it's not the holidays and there's not a bunch of PR coming out and you're not sick. Like, and all that waiting just creates more waiting.
The waiting. And that's literally what expectation is. It means to wait. And
Yeah.
so that was the interesting thing when I was writing the book, that it's about what I was living at the time. I was literally, it's something I knew already, and it's something I'd seen patterns of, but it wasn't as clear to me until I was doing all of these things. I couldn't have written this, it was supposed to be a very similar book, but 3 months before I couldn't have written it because it would have been, I wouldn't have been walking the walk. I embodied this book like while I wrote it.
Yeah.
Because I was doing all this stuff with Le Peach. And that's the really interesting thing. While I was writing the book and trying to buy Le Pitchoune, a lot of things were happening, and there was all this media attention around it, and I still somehow ended up with it because I was dogged. And I kept calling, I kept harassing real estate agents.
Let's talk about there. I know that there were at least 600 people who had the intention to buy the house that you bought in the house in the south of France.
Yes.
So you bought a house in the south of France. It was the summer home of Julia Child, who's an alumni, went to the same college that you went to. What's the difference between all the people who have said, "Oh, I was going to buy that house," and you?
So I've gotten, as Angela said, I've gotten all these emails, and hundreds. I've counted. I got up to 600, and then I stopped counting, of people that said, "I almost bought the house."
Yeah. There's a lot of people who almost wrote a book too, by the way.
There are a lot of people who almost wrote a book. That's true. A lot of people are working on
I probably
books.
have more than 600 emails from them.
Yes.
So what is that? What do you think that means now? What's the difference between what you did and what they did?
So most people went to the Sotheby's website. It was listed on Sotheby's. Went to the main Sotheby's website and stopped there and sent a feedback form. But there was this cute little link below that said, "This is listed by Sotheby's Côte d'Azur," which took you to a different page. And for a while, that link was dead because the house was already sold. And I had this wild hair because the same day as I bought the house, the same day as this article launched, the Paris attacks happened.
God, I forgot about that.
Right, same day. So it was all the same day. So all of these are the two things that went viral that day in France. Julia Child's house went on the market, and the Paris attacks happened. So it actually had sold previous to the article launching because it had sold through the expat grapevine in France. And I had this kind of download that I went to find the link to Sotheby's Côte d'Azur, and I had this, and it was dead. And so I was like, it's probably sold. So I contacted them. It was already sold. Bummed. And then I had this wild hair to check the link again on Sunday, and it was back up because the person who had bought it canceled because of the Paris attacks.
So then you just like bought it and it was super easy and there were no problems.
Yes, no problems at all.
You just said, "I would like to buy this, please."
No, there were
They
other people
said,
in line
"Send
in front
your
of me."
check." Oh.
There were other people in line in front of me. So I wasn't even the next in line, but then they kept falling off like flies. I was like fifth in line. And it finally came to the pike about a week and a half later that if I could get there within a week, that they would cancel the open house if we were serious. And so found investors, sent one of the investors to look at the house. I couldn't go because I was writing a book, and I was in ski instructor training, and I had clients to coach, so I couldn't go look at the house. sent an investor, and by 2 days later, we had an offer, and then it took about 5 months to close.
So even just, and I know a million more things that have happened since then, but even from that very first, I saw the article, to having the investor go there were, I don't know, 30 reasons to stop.
Yes.
That any reasonable human would have said, oh, you didn't get it. So all those 600 emails from people saying I have the intention, they got stopped.
Yes.
And so I think the same thing happens with books.
Yes.
Is like you get this super clear download from the universe. You're supposed to write a book. 10 people tell you on the same day, you should write a book about that. And it's like, it's gonna happen. And then all those little things come up. Why do you think, what's the ingredient that makes your book finished, that makes you have now a retreat center, like a small conference facility in the south of France where I know, host events? That's like a dream for lots of, they've all had that idea, right? There's just as many people who are like, I'm gonna just buy a place in the south of France and host retreats, and every week there'll be like 6 fabulous women from around the world who come and we cook and do yoga. 9 million people have that dream.
Yes.
So what's the difference? Like, what's the critical thing that you have that they're missing?
It does come from intention, but the way I've defined intention, which is this pulling
By the way,
towards.
read her book. It's on Amazon.
It is.
We'll put the link.
It's awesome. It's that willingness to keep going, and that willingness to constantly pull towards, and the constant tension of pulling towards. And it's not a jerk. It's like a constant, like you're pulling a big boat with one rope, and you're trying to pull it in to shore.
Yeah.
One step at a time. And when you've made that next step, sitting and going, okay, do I have the energy? Okay, then doing the next thing, and really following that to completion. That's really the only difference. Yeah. And it's about being really gritty and willingness to kind of insulate yourself from naysayers. I think this is a problem that a lot of people have. I hear it all the time from clients that, well, my husband doesn't think I should do this, or my husband doesn't think I should do that, or my mother or my sister or my friend doesn't think I can. And I had to really insulate myself. I insulated myself when I was writing the book. I got a lot of, oh, you can't write a book while you're doing all these things. And I'd be like, la, 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 have to. I have a deadline, la, la, have to. And I had the same thing with buying La Pitchoune. I had a lot of people going, that's not a smart idea. In fact, I fired my business coach on the phone because she said, I don't understand how that fits in. And I was like, well, I'll explain it to you. And she was like, I think that's a silly idea. I was like, you're fired. Like immediately. She was like, what? I was like, you're fired. And so I really insulated myself while I was in the process from people who were telling me I shouldn't, I can't, it's not possible. I basically just put that away and focused my energy on getting it done and surrounding myself with people who supported me in getting these things done.
Okay, this is another one we're gonna dish on the self-help industry. So another thing in the self-help industry is like surround yourself with the 5 people you most wanna be like, which sounds really great, except when you love your sister or your best friend and she's not necessarily, you don't want to be the average of that person. So do you just cut those people off cold? Like, it's very nice to say it looks good on a meme on Instagram.
It does look like a good meme, that's true.
Right? But then
no.
How did you do that? And does it mean you lost relationships that were important to you?
I would say I lost a couple, but not a ton. What happened was I insulated myself during the process, and I didn't talk to them very often, or I just didn't talk to them about those pieces. So I had a lot of people who in my life were like, you're crazy for wanting to buy Julia Child's house in the south of France. You have a solid coaching business, and why would you do that? And I was like, it's what I want to do, and I have a lot of vision for it, and this is what I'm going to do. And if they naysayed at all, I was just like, I don't think we should talk about this subject.
Did you really say it that clearly?
Yeah. I don't think we should talk about this subject any longer. We can talk about other things. How are the kids? Like, I just stopped the conversation. And I did that while I was writing my book too. People thought I was crazy for working with you. People thought I should go a different route.
Because you had traditional publishing opportunities.
Yeah, I did. And I honestly, I crowdfunded for the book. I didn't really have the money to hire you. But I got people in my court, and I could see who wasn't in my court by who didn't donate. Oh. So that was an interesting thing. So that became very clear who I could talk to about my book and who maybe I wouldn't. And so I just made it very clear, like, we're just not going to talk about this subject. Because I don't want any negativity around it.
Yeah.
And I would just change the subject to something that was something I knew we could agree on. So I didn't really, I lost a few people as I got famous because they thought I was glory hunting, and I was like, I literally did none of this PR. It just came to me.
Right.
And it's free marketing. I'm going to take it. It'd be stupid for me not to. And so I lost some friends that way, but very few. I lost a lot more in other things in my life than in buying the house or writing the book.
But letting go is such it's such a deep lesson that sounds so cute. Like it just sounds so like, oh, if people don't support you. Yeah, exactly.
Let it go.
Just let them go. Like, and you're imagining these like random high school hangers-on that you're not going to talk to. That's not painful. You're not imagining people you care about, people I know you've had challenges with family members, like you've had, like, this is hard work. Hard work. It's not just, you have the vision and then it all just comes.
You know, I saw a really poignant moment between Brene Brown and Oprah recently where they were talking about her new book. And Oprah said to Brene, to live a courageous life, you're going to let down some people and disappoint some people. And Brene went, oh, and it's something that she writes about, but she goes, it sounds really poignant when you make it that clear. And that's the truth. Some people are going to be let down. I've lost a number of people because they just can't keep up and they don't want to keep up. And my life got really big really fast and it was really scary. I spent most of my time in February writing my book and crying. Just like,
because I think we're grieving our past self.
Yes.
Like I talk about how when you're writing the book, you become the person who wrote it. Well, that means you lose the person who didn't write it.
I lost this person. My name's not the same. I'm not that person anymore. I mean, the only thing that's the same is I have the same haircut now. I was like, oh, that kind of, yeah. Because I had longer hair most of the time after that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, you do lose yourself.
Yeah.
And you become a new version of yourself. But that's kind of the way of life. Yeah. That's the Buddhist way.
It's going to happen anyway, probably, and
in various capacities.
Right. Okay, so I want to talk about successful business coach where your clients are making more than you, to today, the Courageous Cooking School. That's a long way from business coaching.
Yes.
You run events, I know not just in France, but you run events and retreats, and they include cooking and movement and coaching and soul searching. Take me from point A to point B, because I think a lot of times what we think is, I think the idea that we have this vision and then we have to know how it's going to go. And I even remember working with you on your book and thinking, oh, you're a business coach and your clients are making more money than you, so let's just make you a business coach where you're making more money than your clients, right? Let's just increase your revenue, and we can do that by changing your products and services. And definitely got that goal. Yeah. Right?
I did.
But not in the way I think certainly not in the way I expected.
No, me either. Wow. So a number of things happened. First of all, I completely revamped my coaching business. I switched it to a more intensive-based model where everybody had to start in a one-day intensive with me or a multi-day intensive, and they were either virtual or in person, and the price point went.
I remember the day that happened.
Yes, and those went from taking me from, a fine income, better than I ever made in corporate or as a professor, admittedly.
Or a ski instructor. Yeah, to regular 5-figure months, like consistent. Right away, immediately. But still business coaching.
Yes.
And meanwhile, you're going through months of tax and visa and investors and
planning the cooking school.
And,
So I'm doing these retreats and these intensives that include cooking, but not the full cooking school experience, so I'm testing it out. So that's kind of happening, that's last year. That's what I'm doing last year. And then I went to an integral coaching school and my brain blew open. I learned a new methodology and it was exactly how I was already coaching, but really framed better. And that completely took me from, okay, I know what I'm doing and I know this is exactly the change I'm creating, but it's in a theory of change that I can get behind really, really quickly. So I went from coaching, business coaching to leadership coaching. So working with CEOs and executives of larger corporations, people who have big nonprofits, people who have big businesses.
And your ideal client sort of changed from this millennial, exennial to much older.
They're almost all over the age of 45. Most are in their 50s. And they're they're either very successful already and they're trying to shift how they show up in the world, or they're pretty successful and they're trying to be more successful, or they have a dead-end career and they're trying to move into something like being an artist or increase success in their artistry. So most of my clients are very, very different than what they used to be.
But what I love about being over 45, I'm almost over 45. I've still got a few months to go. But what I love about that is like you don't have time for the bullshit definition of intention anymore.
Nope.
Like you've done where that gets you, and now you're like, okay, I want results.
They want results and they want them now. And because they're like, I'm running out of time, more so than the people that I originally wrote the book for. And it's really interesting because I wrote the book for that ideal client, that exennial, and now people are reading it in adult, like much older, and they're like, this resonates. They actually get it a lot better because they've tried all of the sitting around and manifesting without action, and it hasn't worked for them. Or it's only had a modicum of success. And so that became my ideal client. And then that's also who primarily comes to the cooking school. I have plenty of people who are my age too, but my average age is probably 50. So I'm working with all of these people. And I think what I've found is that people are interested in tapping into some of the magic that I've created in my life by doing multiple things and following multiple passions instead of just chugging along. So they see someone who's not chugging along, who's already ditched that, and they're like, I want that.
Yeah.
So that's been really, really interesting to change. But that's all because of this. And a lot of people who've read this book, again, it was geared towards this exennial, and the people who really resonate with it are much farther along in their process, which I think is really interesting. I think that's because I was becoming, as I wrote this book, the person I was becoming was so drastically different than the person who just sat around.
Yeah. So this is something I think people want to get their book right.
Yes.
Right? Because they feel like, I just want to make sure I'm putting, it's like their one war and peace or something. Looking now, 18 months, you must look at this book and think, who wrote this? And yet, I'm sure there's some stuff you still agree with. Have you thought about how you would change it or update it? And does that make you wish you didn't write it? You didn't put it out there the way it is? Let's talk about like imperfection, a little of like the wabi-sabi here.
Yes, it is definitely an imperfect book, and it's still awesome, and I still love it. Like I was rereading it last night at your suggestion to kind of like take a look, and I was like, oh, this is actually still really good. It's smart, it's really all over the place, and that's perfectly okay, because what it did is it codified all these things that I had been throwing around in my head, and it solidified them into how I work now. Yeah. And I embodied everything in this book, and it's now who I am rather than something I was wrestling with. So writing it was really, really, really smart. It was the best decision I ever made. I thought it was gonna be my life's work. No, it was it was that portion of my life's work, and it's really the reason I became who I am now and who's capable of being able to do what I do now is because I took everything and cemented it into the book.
And you're like, oh, that's who I am. I'm gonna go be that person.
Yes. So I was able to be that person. So I really think that I don't really think a book needs to be perfect, especially if it's for the purpose of trying to get clients. Like it needs to be done.
Yeah.
It needs to be out there because, as you said, you become that person that you're writing about, and you actually get to take all these things that are running around in your brain and have someone else work with you and create this thing that's actually digestible by someone. And it's a great introduction to how your brain works.
Yeah.
And everybody wants insight into your service provider's brain, and a book does that. And I think it's great to just get it out and be done. And
love it.
I thought about, I'm thinking about going back and working in some of the new stuff I've discovered because I didn't talk as much about impact as I do now. I mention it here and there. I mention impact here and there, but what I realized is that there's this huge portion left out. I talk about intention, I talk about expectation, and I leave out impact.
This is why authors go back and add an epilogue.
Yes,
like,
totally.
Afterward,
Yeah.
There's always more to say.
Yes.
I think it's such a powerful message to know you can do it wrong and still have tremendous success.
Yes.
There's not a right way to do it. What I would say is not taking action is the only way that you can mess up. So if you are thinking, God, I'd love to host retreats in the south of France. I'd love to have more clients, make more money. I would love to shake things up and kind of take my life to the next level. The bad news is you don't always get to control the how.
No.
Because stuff will come at you. But when you truly step into that, and a book is a way to declare that to the universe in one of the loudest ways I know how, some amazing things can happen. Check out what has happened in Makenna Held's life. What is your website now?
MakennaHeld.com.
MakennaHeld.com. We'll make sure you have that link as well, because just really watching what she is putting out into the world, not just with the idea of an intention, but with that action, that pulling forward action. So thank you so much for being our guest today. I hope hearing a little bit about Makenna's journey could shed a little light on what could be possible for you. If you are ready to not just set the intention to write a book, but to follow it through and become the person who wrote that, head over to theauthorincubator.com/apply. You should see the link right here on the screen.